Our experience of the internet today in 2020 is largely based on a 1960s era US Department of Defense network known as ARPANET. This network was designed to share digital packets of data between network nodes, or individual computers, on the network in a way that was relatively impervious to tampering or destruction, and allowed data to be dynamically routed from the node you were using to any node on the network. This was different from previous attempts at long-range computer networking, which required dedicated connections between two computers. Imagine a separate phone number your computer or smartphone would have to call to connect to a different website, disconnecting from the last connection before connecting to a new one. This was the state of computer networking before ARPANET came on scene. In addition to dynamic routing to connect far-flung computers in many different ways, the network was also imagined as a way to maintain communication between branches of the military during a major destructive event like nuclear war. Initially, it was limited in access to U.S. defense agencies and U.S. research universities like Stanford and UCLA, and it grew throughout the 70s and 80s to include more and more civilian organizations. As the network and sophistication of microcomputers grew, one of which, the Apple II, we mentioned in the last lecture, in 1989, an English scientist named Tim Berners-Lee at CERN, which is the European Organization for Nuclear Research in Switzerland, proposed a new document management system that would standardize how content shared between nodes was laid out and transferred over the internet. The system was launched on a Next computer, which was Steve Jobs' new company after leaving Apple in the early 1980s. Next computers in the mid-1980s used advanced graphics and networking technology that would not be in widespread use by Apple or Windows computers until the early 1990s at the earliest.
Hi, I'm Steve Jobs, and I make computers. As humans, we're all tool builders. We create tools that amplify inherent abilities that we have. Tools like the bicycle, telescope, language, mathematics. But the neatest tool we've ever created is the computer. And until now, computers have been used to revolutionize science and industry. But the great news for 1988 is that computers have finally gotten powerful enough to have the same impact in the arts and the humanities. The two things I'd like to share with you are, one, a concept called digital libraries. How many times have we all been in a great library and known there was knowledge there that we wanted to find, but there was no hope of our ever finding it amongst the mass of books? What if we could take that library and put it inside the computer and search through it in a second or two? We've done that in 1988. We've taken books like the complete works of William Shakespeare, and we can search through them in under a second. Now, I'm interested in the future, so I'd like to see what a few people had to say about it. I can walk over here, enter future into the computer, and find out that, let's see what George Orwell had to say. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. Not too positive. And let's go down a little bit further. And I found Lincoln Steffens here. I've seen the future, and it works. We can now place the knowledge of our civilization accessible to our fingertips.
So this advanced system, this next step or next computer, meant that documents created and shared by Berners-Lee could be multimedia rich and graphical, meaning they could use a mouse and incorporate images. And they would use a system of hyperlinks, which is text which pointed to other documents that could be clicked on and visited. The markup language, or the language that created the structure of these documents that computers accessing each document could read, was called HTML, or hypertext markup language. And the protocol, or the way that these computers could communicate with one another, and tell each computer which document it was going to be served, would be called HTTP, or Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Together, these two things, HTML and HTTP, would be called the World Wide Web. While the World Wide Web was launched to standardize document sharing at CERN, it was quickly picked up as a de facto standard across the world, as CERN had a large influence as the largest research node on the internet in Europe in the 1980s. This standard, coupled with the US government's large investment in internet infrastructure, which was passed as a bill led by Al Gore in 1991, led to widespread adoption by the general public of the web in the early 1990s. And by the mid-1990s, NetArt was born.
Set. We're riding on the internet, cyberspace, set free. Hello, virtual reality.
Interactive appetite, searching for a website, a window to the world, got to get online.
Take a spin, now you're in with the techno set. You're going surfing on the internet.